Rick Wilson.
Molly Jong-Fast, have you been arrested this weekend?
Not yet, but there's
Same
still
here. It's a question I start
time.
asking people these days because you never can tell anymore.
So let's talk about California. I want to just mention something which is anecdotal and not reported, but I think important. A friend of mine who was in New York at the protests said that she found the police were there was a lot of them trying to get the protesters to act out.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that, and I think that there is a degree to which Stephen Miller and Tom Homan and Christine Noem and the rest of these idiots, they really, really, really want an excuse, and Pete Hegseth, they really want an excuse to crack heads.
Yeah.
They want an excuse to start beating the hell out of people. And
Yeah.
and they want an excuse to say, "All Democrats believe in violence."
So let's talk about protests because I want to just talk about protests throughout history because one
Sure.
of the things we're seeing here is we're in these periods of these very rapid cycles of backlash to backlash to backlash. So I want to be cognizant of where so for example, there are people who say that the 1960s and the protests in the 60s opened the door to Nixon. Now,
They
I'm not
I think you could absolutely make that case historically, by the way.
right. So I want to be cognizant of what's happening. That said, these protests are protests happening not because of something, but really because of extraordinary action from the Trump administration.
Correct. This is not Vietnam. This is not so amorphous and so distant from people. This is happening in communities across this country right now. These are people, that are being harmed by what DHS and Trump is doing. There's a reason they're not happy about it. It's because they shouldn't be. And you're seeing some of these Republicans start to get very nervous. Like this morning in Florida, you had Salazar, a Republican congressperson from Miami, suddenly saying, "Oh, I don't want all these people deported. They're good people." Oh, are they? Well, you might have mentioned that before, you shill. But it is this is larger and more organic and more dangerous for Trump than I think that a lot of his allies have realized. They look at this as, "Oh, good, it's more Antifa going up against the
Right.
cops. We always win that battle." I'm not sure you actually win this battle because a lot of the people that are being affected by this, have more ties into the communities that they're being expelled from than a lot of the Trump folks think.
Well, I would also add, Democrats sit around worrying about losing Hispanic voters. Here's a really good way to lose Hispanic voters: arrest them
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's
and
that's high on the
deport
list.
them to countries they haven't lived in 40 years.
Or sending them to countries like Sudan.
Yeah,
Some of the stuff that they're doing is so profoundly abusive. And
right.
and in Florida in particular, they're now saying, "Okay, well, we hate communism so much we have to send these people back to communist Cuba. We hate communism so much we have to send these people back to Venezuela and the Maduro regime." Oh,
Right.
interesting. Interesting approach, not one I would have thought of.
Well, so here's the question then. We have Stephen Miller 2 weeks ago says, "I'd like to see more raids at the Home Depot."
Yep.
Today, we see raids at the Home Depot in a Hispanic neighborhood in California. Stephen Miller comes from Santa Monica, has a certain hostility towards California. California, fifth largest economy in the world. We see reporting the Trump administration trying to figure out ways to cut federal funds to California.
Right.
I mean, this clearly is very intentional targeting of the state.
I think we could make a very strong case that a lot of the craziness that we're watching has to do with the pathologies of Stephen Miller's upbringing.
Right.
And
Because
you and I
he's
have
the
talked about this before.
brains,
There is
quote
something
unquote,
wrong
of
with
the
that guy.
organization.
There's something wrong with him at a really fundamental level. Something broke in his childhood that we can't really understand, I guess. But he is a really, really messed up guy. And
Jesse, with the fact check, California, fourth largest economy.
well, there it is, right? I feel like there's a degree to which we have never, had anybody like Stephen Miller in the White House in a long time, in part because he is so quite obviously a broken individual. And this is like this stuff is this the acting out he's doing is so over the top and so dramatic and so, you know, I will restore the beauty of the white race bullshit, that it's ugly and it's terrible, but it's also vaguely intriguing. Like, how do you psychoanalyze this guy? Because
Well,
there's a lot wrong with this guy.
yeah, I mean, I also think there's this tension of Trump administration really wants, they've run on this white nationalist-esque kind of racism.
Yep.
But now Trump has grown his coalition to include Latino. He's grown his voting base with Latino
Correct.
men and black men. So if you're going to deport those people, there will be political consequences. Now,
Correct.
again, Trump is not running in the midterms. There's reporting that says he cares about the midterms. It's hard for me to imagine Trump caring about anyone who's not him.
Yeah, I have a lot of trouble imagining Trump laying awake at night going, "Oh goodness, I wonder if Mike Lawler is gonna be okay."
But, he doesn't want to get impeached again.
Yeah, but you know what? If I were the Democrats, I wouldn't even mention impeachment right now.
Right.
This is a guy who the criming is so extraordinary and so constant that, impeachment almost seems inadequate for it. I mean, this is a
Right.
guy who quite literally every single day is involved in some type or form of criminality that has never been imagined in the White House before. And so, I feel like it's a better argument in this point in the debate to tell the voters that you're gonna have Donald Trump's cabinet members and the people he who work for him and the people who are doing all this horrifying crap, not only in America, but to Americans. They're gonna hold those people accountable. You're gonna have Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller and Tom Homan and, the rest of these nut jobs up in front of congressional committees come next fall or come next spring and have fun because
Right.
there's a sense of right now of immunity among the Trump world where
Right.
nothing where Republicans couldn't possibly lose Congress
Right.
and so they feel like nothing can go wrong.
I think that's right. I do wonder, though, as we look at this and we watch what's happening at this moment, there are going to be unintended consequences for Trumpism, like with the tariffs. So on
Sure.
Saturday, the steel tariffs came on. Now it is more expensive to buy steel if you want to manufacture in the
Right.
United States. That said, if you want to bring in things that are made with steel, you don't necessarily have the same tariff structure. So again,
Right.
yet another moment of unintended consequences.
This administration is marked by a lot of not terribly smart people doing things that they think will appeal to Trump's base
Yeah,
and appeal to Trump.
right,
And over again, as you just correctly pointed out, something like the steel tariffs, it's one more layer of a really bad economic theory being
right,
applied unwisely by people who don't think things through, because they
right.
have not thought any of this through at all. There's been no, like, "Hmm, what could go wrong with this theory?"
Yes.
When
Well,
when a lot seems to go wrong with most of the things they do.
all Elon's people want is for Trump and Elon to make peace
Yes.
because they know they're fucked, right? Like David Sachs is like, I poured all
Oh,
this money into this, and
yep. D
so
guys like David Sachs and the, the all-in guys,
those
their
guys,
nervousness is something to behold.
I love it. Okay, so
I'm
you
eating it up with a spoon.
so ABC News reports on Friday, shortly after 7 a.m., they call Trump. The journalist who calls him asks him about Musk.
Right,
Trump says, "You mean the man who has lost his mind?"
right.
He's not particularly interested, quote unquote, in talking to him right now.
No, and I think one thing you're gonna see here is, like a lot of stuff in the MAGAverse, they convince themselves that the world looks one way, and only that way. Because, before this divorce, Mommy and daddy loved each other,
Right, right, right.
and they were the super team, and they were gonna make the world, they were Doge was gonna save $7 trillion or whatever random number it was, that Musk represented a sort of new philosophical basis for the Republican Party on how they were gonna handle things, and all of it was garbage.
Yeah,
Every bit of it was
garbage.
just like a fever dream, and
Yeah.
so now you've got, guys like David Sachs. I think it was Stephen Colbert who said, like, David Sachs desperately texting mommy to please pick me up from school.
Well, I also just think, like, David Sachs, Trump, I think you see Elon being like, "Well, maybe we should make peace." But the reality is, like, Elon may be erratic, but Trump is erratic. Like, Trump is
Also,
not gonna be friends with him again.
let's remember this. The 4 my one of my rules about Trump, the 4 things that motivate Trump. What makes him money, what keeps him in the spotlight. Sex used to be on the list more, but it's not as much now.
Yeah.
And what humiliates
Congratulations
people.
on turning 78,
I guess
Donald
that has something
Trump.
to do with it. And
Yeah.
what humiliates people.
Right.
And now Elon is only in category 4.
Right.
He Michael Moritz, who's a big Silicon Valley guy, wrote a piece in the Financial Times today, like, basically saying to people who thought they were getting, like, good things for crypto and good things for the valley and good things for AI, he's like, if you guys just jumped in with Trump on this, you understand he's going to, completely F you.
Yeah.
And that's what Trump I mean,
On
what
purpose
part of the
for
pattern of Trump's
fun.
behavior is unclear to people at this late stage in the game.
No, I agree. But it is unclear to people. Like those Latino voters voted for Trump, even though the white people and some Latino people at the Republican National Convention were waving mass deportation now
Yeah,
signs.
yeah. And look, there are 2 groups of people in this country that I think have been in the finding out box about Trump more than any other this year. A lot of those Arab Americans in Detroit and in
Michigan, yeah.
Macomb County who all said, "We're gonna teach Biden a lesson. We're gonna show the Democratic Party
The
they better be with
uncommitted
us on
movement.
Israel from now on,
Yeah.
and we're gonna show Killer Joe, 'You sure did. Good work.'" And now they're in a position where we have a country where if you are an African American, Trump looked at you as a prop, as a stage prop, and if you're Hispanic, pretty much the same thing. I heard from one person around the campaign at one point that they never did anything with the Arab American vote because they just couldn't believe it was actually happening, that anybody could be that stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's pretty dark. So let's talk about what happens now. National Guard is in California. Not much for them to do. Now, pretty stupid. They've sent the National Guard to California before during the Rodney King riots.
yep.
There isn't really, that's not what's happening
This
here.
isn't really an actual thing that calls for the inclusion or the use of federal
Yeah,
military
no.
forces.
That
This is
said,
this is their
there,
cosplay, but they
right.
want some violence.
They want violence. Now, we have seen a lot of stupid things that legislators have done to the Guard. For example, in New York City, the Guard is on our subway. They
Right.
have almost nothing to do there, but it's still, you know. And so it is something, there is some precedent for it, but I think it's really important to remember that when you look at the Twitter account of one Stephen Miller, it's all this is an insurrection, this is an insurrection, this is the end of days. But what it looks like on the ground is people were pushing back, and now it's a little bit more it's more subdued today.
Look, I think we're seeing right now in Los Angeles a fairly understandable, fairly explicable response to the very heavy-handed nature of ICE, which is, again, that is all Stephen Miller. Every bit of that is Stephen Miller's model for doing this. They want to bring in the heavily armed up, tooled up, tactical sort of idea so that they can provoke people to do something dumb. They want one person to push one cop so that, Donald Trump can do everything short of nuking Los Angeles.
Right.
It's really clear why they wanna do it this way. It also is something that plays into the way their base works and thinks and looks and talks about
Yeah.
everything. It's
Right.
all Antifa. It's all a radical left-wing conspiracy trying to destroy America. All
Yeah.
these things are very, like, well-known. We've heard this song a lot of times, let's put it that way.
Yeah. And, I just want to point out one more time between the Elon Trump drama and the what's happening in California, there is a massive piece of legislation that has a lot of crap in it. A lot of crap. Now, some of it's going to get shot down by the Senate parliamentarian, but there is also an opportunity here if Democrats are smart to push, push, push against this fucking bill in the Senate.
Molly, I could not agree with you more. It is a moment that is rarely handed to this to the Democratic Party where all they have to do is take advantage of some basic luck.
So let's talk. If you were working in Chuck Schumer's office right now, what would you do?
Look, I would be do well, first off, yes, line 1 in this thing is the parliamentarian.
Yeah.
That is there's a lot of liquid hot garbage in this thing that cannot survive. Um, but round 2 is you've got time now to talk about what this is going to do to real people and to voters in these Republican districts. And right now, I haven't heard the Democrats aggressively doing that, to my mind, enough, but they've got a moment here where they can start outlining the harm of this bill. They can start outlining the things that are in it that are the stinkers that the Republicans all claim, "I never had a chance to read that."
Right, I didn't see the judicial
What?
but eh but I wonder,
Yeah, it's
and
like
I'm
it's
gonna
it's like what I said that I joked the other day, I was like, "Oh, well, I didn't know that the throwing puppies in the wood chipper bill would mean we would throw puppies in the wood chipper."
right, the refusal to regulate AI, to not allow states to regulate AI, to
Right.
put that for a decade. I mean, insane lawmaking at every point. Here's the other thing I wanna
A
say.
decade from now, Molly, the robot overlords will have destroyed us all at this point.
Well, and it's also, I think, a really important point, which is like right now, Elon Musk has said this bill is a no go.
Yeah,
That is the biggest Republican donor. So if John Thune wants to go to war
yeah.
with the money for the Republican Party, bring it on.
And look, as Trump tried to threaten Elon today with that whole, like, there'll be very serious consequences if he does anything, give money to other people. I'm thinking, first off, yes, thank you very much, for the once again reminding us that the free speech party is anything but. And secondly, this is a pretty hollow threat. If
Right.
Elon Musk wants to spend his money, he's gonna spend his damn money,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
again, as you said, I strongly encourage Elon to pursue every possible remedy to the harm that's been done to him because
Yeah. Heartily, heartily, heartily agree.